Listen up. Stefon Diggs, 5-time Pro Bowler, 1,000 yards last season at 32 years old. And Sports Illustrated just called Chicago the best possible landing spot for him right now. That is not a Twitter rumor, that is a position statement. And in the next few minutes, I am going to break down exactly why this move could be the ultimate weapon for Caleb Williams, but also why there are very real reasons to be worried if Ryan Poles cuts that check. Because while Poles is deciding whether Diggs deserves a shot in the navy and orange, there is already a player on this roster who just made NFL history, Colston Loveland, 22 years old, a rookie, and PFF just graded him as the number 1 tight end in the entire league in the fourth quarter and overtime during the 2025 season, above Kelsey, above Kittle. But what nobody is saying is why that number might make the entire WR1 debate completely irrelevant for this offense. And when you finish processing that, there are 4 stories in the trenches and the receiver room that change the whole picture for the monsters of the Midway. Rome Odunze has his back against the wall, and this is literally the most important year of his career. Garrett Bradbury came over from New England, and Ben Johnson himself said the guy impressed him from day one. And Tyson Bagent just got a valuation from Bleacher Report, and I am going to tell you exactly why accepting that trade would be the biggest mistake Poles could make this entire offseason. Bear down. Let me start with some context, because I think a lot of people are reading this rumor on a surface level and completely missing what's underneath it. The name Stefon Diggs triggers immediate reactions. Some fans hear that name and they think Minnesota Miracle. They think those perfect routes in the intermediate zone. That technically flawless receiver who knew exactly how to create separation against any coverage shell. Other fans hear that name and they think drama. They think Buffalo. They think about the situation with Josh Allen that still generates debate to this day. And that tension between those 2 images of Diggs is exactly the conversation the Bears need to have before making any move. So let's do this right. Let's get serious about it. First, the context for why Diggs is even available right now. The New England Patriots signed him, gave him a contract, and then released him this offseason. The official reason was that his cap hit in the second year of the deal was ballooning out of control. It was not a performance issue. It was not a conduct issue inside the New England locker room. It was cap math. And that matters enormously because it completely changes the narrative around why he is on the street right now. Now, there is something else we have to be honest about. Diggs faced serious legal charges last year, but he has since been found not guilty, innocent under the law. That clears the legal path for any team to sign him without reservation. And when PFF tells you this guy still put up 1,000 yards in 2025 at 32 years old, when most receivers at that age are already in steep decline, you have to ask yourself a real question. How much of that baggage is legitimate, and how much is an exaggerated perception fueled by what happened in Buffalo? I have a strong opinion here, and I am going to defend it. The Buffalo situation with Josh Allen was complicated, but if you analyze what actually happened with some objectivity, what you find is that Diggs operated with a very specific route running and timing philosophy, and when the Bills started changing their offensive system, that connection broke down. It was not simply locker room ego, it was a mismatch between player and system that turned into a communication breakdown that eventually exploded in public. Diggs is not a player who just burns teams down for fun. He is a highly sophisticated receiver who needs the right system, the right communication, and a quarterback who understands how he works. And now here comes the question that changes everything. Are Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams that right combination? Look at what Diggs did with Drake May in New England. May was a second-year quarterback. Young, still learning the position at the highest level, and Diggs did not just put up 1,000 yards for the team. According to every beat reporter who covered that locker room, he was a genuinely positive influence on May's development. He taught him how to read defenses pre-snap. He taught him timing. He taught him how to use the full width of the field. That is not the profile of a player who destroys locker rooms. That is the profile of a high-level veteran who still has gas in the tank and who wants to win a championship before it is all over. Now transplant that to Chicago. Caleb Williams is going to be in his 3rd year in the NFL. We already know the talent is elite. What he is still developing is exactly what Diggs can offer him. Advanced route concepts, how to read coverages out of the slot, how to create separation in 3rd down situations when the defense is already on full alert. Having Caleb Williams watch Stefon Diggs work in practice every single day is not a luxury. It is an invaluable developmental asset that money cannot simply buy. And tactically, this is where it gets really exciting for me. Ben Johnson runs an offensive system that depends heavily on spacing and pre-snap motion. Diggs is historically one of the best receivers in the league at space routes, at reading coverage pre-snap, and at creating mismatch situations in the intermediate zone. If you put Diggs in the slot or on the outside as the WR3, you are creating a matchup problem that defensive coordinators absolutely have to account for. That opens space for Loveland underneath. That opens space for Burden or Odunze on the outside. The domino effect of adding Diggs to this offense is not linear. It is exponential. Let's talk concrete numbers. Diggs in 2025 with New England, 1,000 yards. With a team that was not exactly an offensive powerhouse, with a second-year quarterback still finding his footing, in arguably the worst possible system to maximize what Diggs does best, and he still hit 1,000 yards. Now put him in Ben Johnson's offense that was already top 5 in the league last season, with Caleb Williams in year 3, with Loveland opening coverages from the inside, with Burden and Odunze creating real threats on the perimeter. If Diggs produces 1,000 yards in that context, I owe you one. But even if he produces 700 or 800 yards as the WR3, that is massive value for this football team. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, because it would be irresponsible not to. Ben Johnson. Everyone who has covered Ben Johnson since he arrived at Hollis Hall knows that this head coach has zero tolerance for drama. Zero. He builds team culture above everything else, and Diggs' reputation, fair or unfair, carries that cloud. Can Stefon Diggs coexist in a locker room led by Ben Johnson? My answer is yes. And I have one very specific reason for that answer. Mike Vrabel, the same head coach who is universally recognized as one of the toughest and most demanding coaches in terms of team culture in the entire NFL. Diggs played under Vrabel in New England, and there was no drama, no public complaints, no situations that exploded. Diggs operated within the system, did his job, produced 1,000 yards, and left with his reputation inside that organization completely intact. If he can do that under Vrabel, he can absolutely do it under Johnson. There is a fundamental difference between a player who creates problems for fun and a player who struggles when things are not working properly. Diggs is the second type. When the system functions, when communication is real and consistent, when the head coach puts him in position to succeed, Diggs is a complete professional. The problems only arise when he feels misused, or when the communication breaks down entirely. And Johnson is precisely the kind of head coach who is going to have those direct, honest conversations from day one of training camp. Now, what would this actually cost? Because that is what really matters for the Bears. Diggs is 32 years old and carries that reputational cloud. He is not going to command what he made in Buffalo. We are probably talking about a 1 or 2 year deal with a relatively low guarantee and performance incentives built in. For Ryan Poles, who has been incredibly strategic with Chicago's cap space, that kind of structure is completely manageable, especially when the on-field benefits are this clear and this immediate. And here is my final take. No hedging. No qualifications. The Chicago Bears should sign Stefon Diggs right now, before training camp opens. The fourth receiver on this team right now is Khalif Raymond or Scotty Miller. With all the respect in the world for those players, that is simply not good enough for a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. Diggs as the WR3 behind Burden and Odunze is an immediate and significant upgrade to the depth of this offense. He brings playoff experience. He brings mentorship for the young receivers on this roster. He creates a matchup problem that defensive coordinators cannot ignore, and he is exactly the type of move that separates a contender from a champion. Ryan Poles has repeatedly said this team has Super Bowl aspirations. Well, if that is true, then prove it. Sign Diggs. Give Caleb Williams every possible weapon, and let Ben Johnson do what he does best. There is something that the greatest quarterbacks in history all have in common. It is not that they had the best receiver in the world running routes for them. What they all share is that in the most important moment of the game, they have that one guy. That player that, when the clock is ticking and the score is tight, the quarterback does not think twice. He just throws. Brady had Gronkowski. Mahomes has Kelsey. And Caleb Williams already has Colston Loveland. PFF just released their 10 highest graded players in the fourth quarter and over time during the 2025 season. The number one tight end in the entire league with a grade of 91.1 was not Travis Kelce. It was not George Kittle. It was Colston Loveland, a 22-year-old rookie in his very first NFL season, outperforming the best tight ends on the planet when it mattered most. 40% of his receiving yards came in the fourth quarter or overtime, half of his touchdowns. And in the final 7 games of the regular season, he recorded at least one fourth quarter first down in every single one of those games. 7 consecutive games. That is not luck, fam. That is a competitive gene that does not exist in any playbook. Think about the moments we already witnessed. The go-ahead touchdown against Cincinnati, the 2-point conversion in the wild-card win over Green Bay, which was the most important Bears game in years. And in his playoff debut, Loveland became the first rookie tight end in NFL history to record 8 or more catches and 100 or more receiving yards in a single playoff game. First rookie in the history of the NFL. At 22 years old. And here is the tactical analysis that matters most. With the exception of Tyreek Hill's 2019 season in Kansas City, Neither Brady nor Mahomes had a dominant top 5 wide receiver in any of their Super Bowl victories. What they had was an elite quarterback, a brilliant head coach, and a tight end who did impossible things in the moments that mattered most. Caleb Williams already draws Mahomes comparisons everywhere he goes. Ben Johnson won the division in his very first year as a head coach. And if Loveland continues on this trajectory, the missing piece of this puzzle may already be wearing navy and orange on the lakefront. The WR1 debate might end up being completely irrelevant, because when the game is on the line, Caleb is not looking for whoever is listed as WR1 on the depth chart. He is looking for number 18, and that says absolutely everything. 4 stories that connect and complete the picture of exactly where the Bears stand right now. Let's start with Rome Odunze, because there is a real pressure narrative here that is not being communicated loudly enough. Kevin Fishbane from The Athletic was very direct on 104.3, the score. This is Rome Odunze's year, no going back. And every word of that lands for me. Odunze's numbers in 2025 before the injury were genuinely promising. 200-yard games, 4 touchdowns in the early weeks. He was on pace for his first career 1,000-yard season. The foot injury stopped everything cold. He finished with 44 catches, 661 yards, and 6 touchdowns. What did improve, and this matters, was his yards per reception average. From 13.6 yards in his rookie season to 15 yards per catch in 2025. More explosive when he has the ball. The problem is that he does not have it often enough. And when he is playing through an injury that limits his movement, the production drops significantly. Here is where the pressure gets real. Luther Burden. The third is collecting every headline this offseason. Ben Johnson himself is publicly buying stock in Burden. If Burden comes out and is the de facto WR1 from opening day, what exactly does that leave for Odunze? Fishbane said something that not enough people are processing. If Odunze has a big season this year, he and Caleb Williams can both start talking contract extensions after the year is done. That is motivation. That is pressure. And that is exactly what Rome Odunze needs to walk through the door with this summer. Now, on the offensive line, OTAs gave us our first real answers. Braxton Jones is getting the first crack at the left tackle starting spot, and honestly, that was the expected call. 3 seasons of experience with the Bears organization. The player who brings the most continuity to that unit. In an alternate universe where he never gets hurt last year, he never stops being the starter going into 2026. Theo Benedette will likely work with the second unit. Kieran Amagagier needs to show something real at some point because time is not infinite. And Jedrick Wills, the newest addition to the room, is still working back from injury and carries the lightest workload right now. But the most important trench story of the day was not Jones. It was Garrett Bradbury. The center arrived via trade from the Patriots after Drew Dahlman's shocking retirement at 27 years old, a move that left the Bears scrambling for a solution at the position. And Bradbury delivered an immediate answer. Ben Johnson was very clear with reporters at today's OTAs. Bradbury impressed him from day one with his level of communication on the field. He said, and I quote, "He's loud, he's demonstrative. I know that he's going to be able to get all 5 guys on the same page." For an offensive line that was already top 3 in the entire league in 2025, with a pass-blocking efficiency rating of 87.7 and only 13 sacks allowed all season long, having the right leader at the center position is absolutely critical for keeping Caleb Williams clean and comfortable in the pocket. And finally, Tyson Bagent. Bleacher Report valued him at a 2027 6th-round pick. The conclusion here is simple, and I will defend it completely. If that is all they are offering you back, do not make that trade. Bagent, with 4 career starts, still has unexplored upside in this league. Poles and Johnson have both gone on record saying they love this player. And for a team with genuine Super Bowl aspirations, having a quality backup quarterback who knows the system inside out is exactly the kind of depth that separates a contender from a champion. A 2027 6th-round pick does not equal the peace of mind of knowing that if Caleb Williams goes down, you have someone standing behind him who can compete. That is the bottom line. Fam, when you put all of this together, you see a team that is building with real and serious intentions. A potential Stefon Diggs signing that would completely reshape this offensive room from top to bottom. Loveland already proven as the most clutch weapon in the most important moments in the entire league. Odunze with everything on the line heading into the year that defines his future in Chicago. The offensive line taking shape with Bradbury leading from the center and Jones starting on the left side. And Bagent locked in as the insurance policy this team absolutely deserves to have. The 2026 Chicago Bears are not the team of the past. This is a team that won the division in Ben Johnson's first year and that right now is staring directly at the Super Bowl. Does Diggs end up in navy and orange? That is what we are going to keep watching very closely. But if he does, fam, you already know exactly where I stand. If this breakdown fired you up the way it fired me up, drop that like right now. It genuinely helps more than you know. And tell me down in the comments, do you sign Stefan Diggs or do you let him walk? Bear down, Da Bears, and I will see you in the next one.